Are you considering high altitude photography with your pup? Then you must watch this video before you go. Before we go any further though, be sure to paw that subscribe button and the like button and share this with friends. If you know anyone considering going up into high country, they need to see this video too. If you watch some of my previous videos about photographing your dog out in the snow, or you followed along with me on the sled dog races, then you might be inspired to come take your dog up into high altitude too. Before you head out the door though, there are some critical factors you need to know before you take your dog up into high altitude. In this video, I'll give you some warnings to heed so that you and your pup stay healthy and safe in high altitude. I'm up here in the high country in Leadville, Colorado, which is 11,000 feet above sea level, which is almost 2 miles up. I have been invited out for the 3rd year in a row to photograph the Colorado Mountain Mushers Mount Massive sled dog races. Although I live in what's considered high altitude near Denver at about 1 mile high, this is double that. So I'm actually feeling the effects today too. So really keep this in mind. One of the things you want to keep in mind is that you need sunscreen. Isn't that strange? You're saying, Monique, it's February, sunscreen. Yes, we're at such high altitude, there's not much atmosphere to protect our skin from the sun's rays, and then it bounces back from the snow back up on us. And I already have rosacea, so I'm already red, and I could feel a little bit of the sun and effects from yesterday, and if there's any wind, that'll affect you too. So be sure to apply sunscreen. All day yesterday, the mushers were passing back and forth and reminding each other to apply sunscreen. And so that goes along with chapstick, sunglasses, wear some lotion, those kinds of things. So protect your skin in high altitude for sure. Something you're also going to hear over and over and over from Denver on up is drink water, drink water, drink water. You will get dehydrated very quickly here. It's very dry air and it is no fun to be dehydrated. If you can hear the sled dogs in the background, some of them are getting ready to go out on a run. Before a race, the mushers will give the dogs some dry food in what looks like bread loaf pans and almost fill that up with water. So they're thinking about that for their dogs as well. Keep your dogs hydrated up here. So if you're in high altitude and you start to get a headache or feel nauseous, out of breath, that's really common. You might be suffering a little bit from altitude sickness. Out of breath is one of the first things I tend to notice, like, oof, I could hardly kind of walk around, and it's because that altitude is getting to me. So really keep in touch with your body and how you're feeling, and don't stress it. Altitude sickness is serious. And so if you're starting to feel that way and you're not feeling better, get yourself in to see a doctor. So what about your pups? Do they suffer from altitude sickness as well? Actually, they do. One thing you want to do before you take your dog up into the high country is, of course, go get them checked by your veterinarian. That's number one. Make sure they don't have any other health issues and let them know where you're going and what altitude, and they can definitely give you pointers and let you know if they think your dog is even healthy enough to come up into the high country. Dr. Marty Becker actually has a great blog post where he interviews Dr. Sanderson, who's a veterinary cardiologist, about what she thinks about altitude sickness with dogs. And I'll link to that article here in the YouTube video too. And she says pups can see problems even as low as 6,000 feet, which is just a little bit above Denver. So if your dog has any pulmonary hypertension, ask your veterinarian, then symptoms can be severe once you get to altitude. Breeds with a higher risk of altitude sickness are those brachiocephalic dogs, like the squishy face dogs, like your pugs, your boxers, your bulldogs. Those are going to have a little bit more trouble at high altitude. And she says that even smaller breeds like Chihuahuas can have some issues, and of course your elderly dogs are definitely at risk. So what are the symptoms of your dog having altitude sickness? Well, it's fairly similar as in humans. If they have some labored breathing, if they faint for sure, if you see any vomiting or diarrhea or loss of appetite, get them to the veterinarian. When you're planning your trip to the high country, pick out a couple of vets in your area, and especially the emergency vets, because we know how it is. It'll be late or after hours or on the weekend, right? Have you ever suffered with altitude sickness? How did you know? What was your first sign? I said my first sign is out of breath. What was it for you? I'd love to know in the comments below, and we can educate everybody about the signs to look for up here. So you might be thinking, Monique, what's the good news? Well, there is good news. According to Dr. Sanderson, altitude sickness in dogs is actually fairly rare. And with people, if you are listening to your body and following all of this advice and your doctor's advice for sure, then you can minimize the effects and know when to get treatment. So that's the good news. You can still enjoy your trip to the high country with your pup and your camera if you do a little bit of pre-planning ahead of time. So armed with the knowledge from this video, you can plan your winter adventure with your pup. Hey, if you know someone heading up to high country or winter wonderland or the mountains, anywhere at high altitude, let them know about this video. Be sure to share it out and we can spread the word. Of course, remember to paw that subscribe and like button, share it with your friends again, and leave a comment down below of your thoughts on this video and your experience in the high country with your pups. And until next time, I wish you many woofs, purrs, and TREATSs.